My hero really wanted a quiet life, one where he could relax every day. What he wished for was peace and simplicity, but in reality, his days were always filled with Naruko, Thuko, and Hasuda. They were noisy and distracting, especially when they played games in his room. Feeling annoyed, my hero told them to go play downstairs instead. Naruko responded by inviting my hero to join the game. Thuko asked him to make breakfast, and Hasuda teased him by saying he was being lazy for lying down on a Sunday. Naruko then suggested that they should go out and have a barbecue party later that night. My hero told them that he needed some time alone, wondering why the three of them could never understand that. Naruko leaned close to his face, which made my hero suddenly remember the time when they kissed. Just recalling that moment made his face turn red. Seeing his expression, Naruko assumed he was running a fever and pressed her forehead against his to check his temperature. Out of nowhere, Thuko jumped toward my hero, hoping to get the indirect touch from Naruko's forehead. Hasuda suddenly piled onto him as well. Naruko immediately told them both to let my hero go. Just then, the doorbell rang. My hero hurried to answer it and was surprised to find a young girl standing there with a small creature by her side. The girl smiled at him. My hero asked who she was, and the small creature introduced her as Miss Guthatan, the young daughter of the wealthy Gafanato family. The creature also introduced himself as Roy Fogger. It turned out they had come because Yoriko had invited them. Not long after, Yoriko called my hero to explain that she had found Guthatan and Roy Fogger lost and believed that Naruko and the others could help them. She asked my hero and the group to take care of them until someone came to pick them up. At that moment, Roy Fogger apologized to Guthatan because they got lost due to his lack of experience with Earth. Guthatan reassured him that it was fine and asked him not to worry too much. She forgave him and gently patted his head, which made Roy Fogger overjoyed at how kind his young mistress was. Naruko mentioned that she had already reported the situation to the Planetary Defense Organization and the Planetary Police, so all they had to do was wait. Hearing that, both Guthatan and Roy Fogger gratefully thanked her. Mahira, however, felt unsure about how to take care of them. Naruko offered to teach Guthatan about libraries, everyday student life, maid-themed culture, robots, high school art, and even unconventional hobbies. Mahira, though, thought none of that was necessary. Naruko explained that she wanted to guide Guthatan and boost her own performance rating to a perfect 5 stars, hoping that would impress Yoriko. Mahiro could already guess how sly Naruko's intentions were. Thuko thought that taking care of Guthatan would make Naruko a good wife, while Hasuda also volunteered to look after Guthatan if it meant Yoriko would be impressed. Naruko then invited Guthatan to play with her, and Guthatan happily agreed. Unfortunately, the message Naruko tried to send to the Planetary Defense Organization and the Planetary Police never went through because the network was down. Later that day, 2 large aliens appeared above the house. Around the same time, Naruko introduced Guthatan to a game. Roy Fogger immediately recognized it as a legendary game that had been recalled only 2 weeks after its release because it was considered inappropriate. Naruko was surprised that Roy Fogger knew about it. Guthatan seemed to enjoy the game, and Naruko claimed it was meant for learning about human relationships and social dynamics. Mahiro quickly took the game away, insisting it wasn't something for children. Guthatan looked sad because she really wanted to play, but she chose to listen to Mahiro. Touched, Mahiro gently patted her head and called her a good kid. Guthatan smiled and promised that she would always listen to him and continue being well-behaved. Mahiro then scolded Naruko, telling her not to give things like that to someone underage. Roy Fogger, instead of being concerned, curiously asked Naruko where she had found such a rare product, but Naruko refused to answer. Listening to the two of them talk made Mahiro wish she could throw them both out of the house. Thuko then asked Guthatan what her favorite food was, but Roy Fogger answered by mentioning his own favorites, sushi rolls and BLT sandwiches. Thuko tried to convince Mahiro that Guthatan wanted a lovingly prepared breakfast made by him, but Mahiro pointed out that Guthatan had never said that and that it was just Thuko's own request. Jokingly, Thuko teased that Guthatan would probably enjoy drinking Naruko's homemade milk. Naruko dramatically placed her hands on her chest, claiming her milk was meant only for Mahiro. Hasuda then offered to make breakfast, but Mahiro declined because he wasn't confident about Hasuda's cooking skills. Suddenly, the refrigerator in Mahiro's house started to shake. Naruko guessed it must have been the barbecue ingredients thawing out, but instead, a giant insect burst out of it. The creature was a shagbag insect, and it flew around the house, leaving a mess everywhere. Seeing this, Roy Fogger cheerfully commented that the barbecue party later would surely be lively. Naruko added that she always made sure to import only the highest quality ingredients. Mahiro asked Naruko to quickly do something. Thuko immediately released her fire powers to burn the Shage Barbic bug, but Mahiro stopped her because it could set his house on fire. Hasuda then offered to drive the insect away with her wind powers, but Mahiro stopped her as well because it could cause panic outside. According to Miyaruko, Mahiro worried too much about everything, so she used the Ninokris mirror. The mirror pulled the Shabai inside and the bug problem was solved. Mahiro was puzzled as to why Miyaruko always carried dangerous tools. He remembered when she once gave him a mirror back when their bodies were swapped, and he could not imagine what would have happened if he had been pulled inside the mirror. Miyaruko told Mahiro not to worry because the mirror had already passed the ISO 9901 quality standard. Mahiro scolded her, but when their faces ended up close, Mahiro suddenly remembered the time they kissed. His face turned red and he quickly turned away. Miyaruko asked why he was acting like that all of a sudden and teased whether he felt flustered when looking at her lips. Mahiro denied it. Miyaruko admitted she was always ready for that kind of moment and told him not to hold himself back. She leaned closer, but Mahiro refused and pointed out the messy room instead. He said he would clean it up, and although Miyaruko and Hasuda offered to help, Mahiro declined. Miyaruko even suggested using the mirror's suction power to make cleaning easier, but Mahiro quickly kicked all three of them out of his house and told them to stay away until he was done. The three of them left to wait until Mahiro calmed down. Mahiro was startled when he saw Guthaton, who ended up making his house even messier. Roy Fogger reminded Guthaton to wash herself up since she was dirty. Guthaton obediently removed her clothes, but Mahiro quickly scolded her and told her to change in the dressing room. While Guthaton was in the bathroom, Mahiro mopped the floor and sighed at how his food ingredients had been ruined. Roy Fogger apologized for disturbing Mahiro and pleaded with him to help bathe Guthaton. Mahiro agreed, and with Roy Fogger keeping him company, he carefully washed Guthaton's hair. Roy Fogger mentioned that Guthaton usually bathed together with her maids. After finishing her shampoo, Mahiro rinsed her hair. Guthaton shook her wet hair, sending water drops onto Mahiro, but instead of being annoyed, he laughed. Once the bath was done, Mahiro prepared some food and invited Guthaton to eat. Guthaton opened her mouth wide, waiting for the food to be fed to her, leaving Mahiro confused. Roy Fogger explained that Guthaton was used to being spoon-fed by her maids. Mahiro then fed her, and afterward, he even helped her fall asleep. At that moment, Mahiro thought to himself that maybe this was what it felt like to have a little sister. It had been a long time since he felt such calmness. Neruko suddenly appeared through the window and was shocked to see Mahiro putting Guthaton to sleep on his lap. She was surprised by Guthaton's wet hair and clean clothes. Annoyed, Neruko asked whether Mahiro had bathed together with Guthaton, while she and the others were gone. Mahiro admitted he had helped Guthaton wash her hair, which surprised both Thuko and Hasuda. Mahiro smiled and clarified that he had not done anything strange, only helped with washing. Still, they demanded that Mahiro treat them the same way he treated Guthaton. Panicked, Mahiro grabbed Guthaton and ran away. On the way, Guthaton woke up and greeted him. He ran to Takahiko's house and went straight into his room, where Guthaton greeted Takahiko. Takahiko smiled and asked what was going on, but Mahiro noticed Naruko and the others peeking from the window outside. Without explaining, he immediately left, leaving Takahiko clueless about what was happening. Later, Mahiro ran into Tamao and called out to her. Curious, Tamao asked who was with him. Guthaton and Roy Fogger politely introduced themselves, but Mahiro did not have time to explain because Naruko was still chasing him. He then rushed into Louis's takoyaki stand, asking Louis to help hide him. Guthaton called Louis aunt and asked her for some juice. Hearing the word aunt made Louis a little annoyed. Mahiro reminded Louis not to tell anyone that he had passed by. He quickly left, and not long after, Naruko arrived. She asked Louis if she had seen Mahiro, and Louis pointed her in the right direction. Thuko came next and bought takoyaki. As soon as she finished eating, she ran off to chase after Mahiro again. Hasuda then arrived at Louis' stand. She looked completely exhausted, so Louis offered her something to drink. Hasuda thanked her but said she would pay later because she was in a hurry. Louis felt touched, realizing how beautiful youth could be. Meanwhile, Mahiro kept running, with Guthaton happily following him. Suddenly, two large creatures appeared, blocking their path. Roy Fogger hadn't expected to encounter Shamus there, while Mahiro wondered why such things kept happening to him when all he wanted was a peaceful life. Naruko, Thuko, and Hasuda soon noticed the commotion. The two creatures turned out to be lost Shaveths, and they seemed restless. Naruko called out that they should aim for the creature's eyes, but the Shaveths suddenly revealed dozens of them at once. Feeling fired up, Naruko shifted into her battle mode. When one of the Shaveths lunged at Mahiro, Naruko managed to punch it away. Its tentacles kept swinging toward her, but she dodged quickly and countered with her own strikes. With ease, Naruko defeated the first Shoggoth. The second Shoggoth went after Mahiro, but Thuko and Hasuda stepped forward to protect him. Hasuda summoned her wind powers while Thuko unleashed her fire abilities. Together, they managed to burn down the creature, but the force of the attack also knocked Mahiro and Guthaton back, causing them to fall. Naruko returned to her normal form, jumping around cheerfully and hoping Mahiro would be impressed by her actions. Mahiro, however, thought the three of them were being way too reckless. When he noticed Guthaton had fainted, he rushed over worried about her. He quickly tried to wake her, and when Guthaton opened her eyes and called out his name, Mahiro felt relieved and thankful that she was safe. Naruko apologized, but Mahiro told her it was Guthaton who deserved the apology. He then scolded Naruko, Thuko, and Hasuda, saying that they always acted on their own without thinking about the people around them. Mahiro asked when they planned to return to the space police and reminded them to finish their responsibilities as planet defense agents. After that, Mahiro brought Guthaton back home. He treated the small scratch on her forehead and she thanked him warmly. That night, Mahiro prepared dinner, but Naruko and the others still hadn't returned. He wondered if he had been too harsh on them, though he convinced himself that they were the ones at fault. Guthaton admitted she was hungry, so Mahiro invited her to eat with him. Roy Fogger reminded him that Naruko hadn't come back yet, but Mahiro told him not to worry, believing that they would eventually return. Mahiro then fed Guthaton, and during dinner, she suddenly asked if he ever felt lonely. Mahiro brushed it off, saying that what he truly wanted was a quiet life like this, because it gave him peace of mind. Still that night, before falling asleep, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. The next morning, Mahiro woke up at 7 a.m. and was surprised to realize it was Sunday. His house was unusually quiet. When he went to check Guthaton's room, she wasn't there. He searched for Thuko, Hasuda, and Naruko, but none of them were at home. Mahiro was left confused, not knowing where everyone had gone.